This is WPTV, William Patterson Television.
Welcome back to the desk. The NFL offseason is just about over, and here with me to break it down is Phritz Napoleon, Andrew Ballistreri, JJ Woodards, and Trent Troller. Guys, starting off, we're going to look back to all the moves made by each team since the Super Bowl, and JJ, we'll start with you. What team do you think won the offseason with all the moves they made?
Houston Texans. You have the offensive rookie of the year, C.J. Stroud, the defensive rookie of the year, Will Anderson, and you only get better. Add Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, Daniil Hunter, I forgot his name, Daniil Archie, and Azir Shahir. They just got way better, and they're going to be at the top of the AFC this year.
Absolutely. I think they could be Super Bowl contenders with the moves they made. But Trent, we'll move on to you. What team do you think won the offseason?
The Detroit Lions, obviously. No, I'm going to be biased here, pick the New York Jets. Honestly, I'm going to spoil a little bit. You're going to see that a lot today. But when you look at the Jets, what they had a great draft where you bring in Olu Fashanu, Malachi Corley, Jordan Travis, Braylon Allen, fantastic players. Malachi Corley being my favorite player in the draft. So you know I was jumping, screaming around my house. Quite frankly, I'm amazed you didn't hear all the way in Detroit.
I don't doubt that.
I don't either. Not even a little bit.
And screaming.
No, I was. I am. There is no exaggeration. I was jumping and screaming for Malachi Corley.
And you know what? You get your guy, so I'm sure you were happy with the Jets and how they drafted. But Andrew, we'll move on to you. What team do you think won the offseason?
Well, the Chicago Bears, they got their guy, and they are the winners of this offseason. They had a complete overhaul of that offense, kept Matt Eberflus, which I think was a surprising decision, but I think it was a solid decision. You know, obviously, they draft Caleb Williams. They get Roma Dunze at 9. They get DeAndre Swift and Gerald Everett in free agency. They trade a 4th-round pick for Keenan Allen, which I think was a phenomenal move. I think Caleb Williams has been put in the best situation a first overall pick has ever been in. I think the Bears might put some teams on notice this year.
You know, I honestly agree. I think the NFC North, besides the Lions, is kind of up for grabs right now, and I think the Bears could sweep in and come second in there. But Phritz, we'll finish off with you for this question. What team do you think won the offseason?
Yeah, one team for me is going to be the Detroit Lions. And look, I know this may be a surprise. They didn't make any huge splash signings in the offseason, but they retooled a lot of their defense, made some key signings. They drafted Terrion Arnold from Alabama, traded for Carlton Davis. So they're going to really reinforce that defense. Going to have a great secondary going into next year. So look, they're sitting atop of the division. I think they're going to reclaim that title next year. I think they're going to be a force in the league for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. They knew what their weakness was, and they went in the offseason with the plan to address it, and they did that in great fashion. But looking towards the actual season, there's a lot of optimism for many teams, some looking to go from worst to first of their division. Phritz, we'll start back with you. What team do you think is most likely to go worst to first?
Yeah, shocking for me, but unfortunately, I'm going to go with the New England Patriots.
Oh,
look, yeah, I know,
Egads.
surprising for me. But as far as I'm concerned, the AFC East is just a huge question mark. Look, you have the Bills without Stephon Diggs going into next year. Never seen Josh Allen without a true number 1 receiver. So we have no idea what that's going to look like. The Jets need to just figure out their identity. Yeah, they had a great draft, but we have yet to see all of that come into picture. I was fooled last year. It won't happen to me again.
Roll me once.
Yeah, and the Dolphins have just been certified frauds at this point. So I feel like with the new head coach and the new quarterback and J.J. McCarthy, hey, who knows? Maybe they can throw everything together and figure it out, come up first in the East.
I know you meant Drake May, but, you know, it's easy to get. I mean, Michigan quarterback, it's all good. But, JJ, what team do you think is ready to go worst to first this next year?
Possibly the Chicago Bears. Now, see, like Valley said, they got Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, Caleb Williams. They set up the offense nice. Now, the defense is a little shaky, but I can see them go 10-7 and possibly be first in the division. Possibly.
Yeah, you know, it's possible. I mean, they weren't as bad as people would have thought last year. That first overall pick was from a trade last year with the Panthers. But, Trent, we'll move on to you. What team do you think is ready to go worst to first?
There's a team that we've been forgetting about for a while, and that's because, you know, their star quarterback went out for couple weeks last season. That really hurt them. But the Cincinnati Bengals are a team who are really strong. They have a lot, you know, Joe Burrow's coming back, had a pretty good draft, get Amarius Mims, hope he's your right tackle of the future, and just overall very strong unit.
Yeah, and you know, 9-8 for a team worse in the division is not bad whatsoever. But Andrew, we'll close this question out with you. What team do you think is ready to go worst to first?
Well, it pains me to say this because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I got to say the Washington Commanders, they had a phenomenal offseason. They had a ton of draft capital and cap space. They got Jaden Daniels, obviously. They go get Austin Eckler, Tyler Biadasz, Nick Allegretti, along with about 15 other names in free agency. They had really a solid draft overall, too. They pick up Brandon Coleman, a nice offensive lineman, wide receiver Luke McCaffrey, who can definitely make an impact in that offense. And I don't know necessarily if this team wins the NFC East, but I think they definitely are making a push for the playoffs this year.
100%. I mean, that division is always up for grabs. The Cowboys, I'm sorry, but they got a little worse. So.
They did.
We'll see what happens, but the official NFL schedule is being released this week, and there's a lot of different games to look forward to this season. Trent, we'll start with you. What game are you looking most forward to next season?
So this one's very personal. I mean, well, it's the Jets again. Who would have guessed? But the Jets, I want to see them demolish the Patriots this season. A little flimsy game between two teams that didn't have any playoff aspirations in the last game last season. That was boring. That was nothing. Who cares if it was Belichick's last game and he lost to the Jets? Who cares? What matters now is that the Jets come in swinging, prove that they're one of the best teams in the league right now by beating the hell out of the Patriots and putting the bully to rest for good.
You just really want to see New England's downfall, don't you?
Of course.
That too.
I mean, I don't blame him.
I want to see them lose more than I want to see the Jets win.
You know what? I can't blame you for that, but Andrew, we'll move on to you. What matchup are you looking most forward to?
I'm going to go with my team that won the offseason and my team that's going worst to first. Chicago Bears versus Washington Commanders. I think it'll be an awesome matchup. You see both of those top picks, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, obviously going against each other. And it's always fun to see two rookie quarterbacks match up against one another. And I think it'll be an exciting matchup in general. I mean, you know, we saw both these teams have complete overalls, and I think that they're both expecting playoff pushes this year.
Yeah, probably going to be big jumps for both of those teams. But Fritz, we'll move on to you. What matchup are you looking most forward to?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with a storied NFC East rivalry with the Giants versus the Cowboys. Look, the Giants have added a star in Malik Neighbors. They've traded for Brian Burns. And you have the Cowboys that have kind of, remained a little stagnant. But in the past years, they've been a bully in that division. So right now, the NFC East is really looking like a question mark. We have multiple teams that can make a push for the start of that division. So it'll be really interesting to see with the Giants, with their retooled moves, if they can maintain and keep punches with the team that was pretty dominant in that division.
Absolutely. Always a classic, Giants-Cowboys. But, JJ, we'll close it out with you for this question. What matchup are you looking most forward to next year?
I'm going to go with the division matchup, the LA Chargers versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
Can't go wrong.
Why do you not want to see that? I mean, Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, you got to. It's going to be a great game.
No, that's gonna be fun. And with the Chargers' new retooled offensive line, Joe Alt, I think they might be able to keep punch for punch with the Chiefs. But we're gonna end it with the biggest question we could ask all semester here on Sports Desk. We want to make our way too early Super Bowl predictions. So, Andrew, we'll start with you. Who do you think ends up in the Super Bowl next year?
We're going to go with the Battle of Texas, Mark. It's going to be the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Houston Texans next year for the ring and for the King of Texas. Listen, both these teams, they have a ton of talent on their rosters, and they are just failing to make deep playoff runs in the last, I guess, 3 decades now for the Cowboys. The Cowboys, all they do is disappoint me in the playoffs every single time. The Texans, they've never even reached the damn thing. So it'd be a pretty storybook thing if, you had a pretty cool story. You just have the Cowboys finally getting back, the Texans getting there for the first time, and the Cowboys coming out on top.
That would be very, very fun to see. I like the in-state battle. But, Fritz, we'll move on to you. What matchup do you think ends up happening in next year's Super Bowl?
Yeah, one matchup that I think is really probable that we'll see is the Detroit Lions taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, last year, I feel like this was the year for the Detroit Lions to just figure out what they can do. I feel like they're battle-tested and can get over that hump. With the Cincinnati Bengals, right now, the AFC is just looking like a pretty big question mark. I don't really trust the Ravens anymore. The Bills are pretty much done with their with losing Stephon Diggs. And the Chiefs, their receivers are wondering if they even want to be receivers, or they have a lot of issues going on there. So I think that they can really make a push and make it to the Super Bowl to take on the Lions.
You don't trust the Ravens?
No, I don't. Every time that they've had a season that has put Lamar Jackson in the MVP frontrunner, he's always lost every single time. Okay. I'm not going to allow myself to get tricked.
Understandable.
That would be a fun matchup to see. The two cat teams fight and two fan favorite teams. A lot of people.
Not the Lions, no.
Not the Lions. Oh,
well,
Cowboys. No. But JJ, we'll move on to you. What do you think ends up being the Super Bowl matchup this year?
Fritz got one team right, was Lions. I don't know about the Bengals because they're not going to make it because it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions.
Oh, brother.
How can you not go Baltimore? Detroit, they got better, but the Baltimore Ravens are going to win. They have Derrick Henry, and please just win. That's all I'm asking. Please win. Please. That's all I'm asking.
I know you'd be rooting for Baltimore in that one as you are a Ravens fan, but Trent, we'll close it out with you. I'm sure I know one team that you're going to say, but What do you think ends up being the Super Bowl matchup next year?
Well, of course, the Detroit Lions are going to make it, and I think they're going to own the NFC this season, quite frankly, but the team with them, Jets, Jets. The New York Jets are going to make it to the Super Bowl this year. I'm telling you, this is our year. This is it. After years and decades of misery from both the Lions, both the Jets, both teams make it to the final clash to see who finally wins to bring their fans and their team and their franchise to the top.
It's not gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
We said the Jets are making the Super Bowl last year, but they didn't make it because of things we unforeseen. It didn't happen the year before that, but certainly this year's our year. It has to be.
I've been saying that for the last 20 years, man.
20 years? I've been saying that for almost 60 years now.
Okay. Well, I just think the Broncos are going to make the Super Bowl. Let's be real, Bo next. But anyway, that's going to do it for the NFL here on Sports Desk. Up next, we've got the MLB on Sports Desk.